I want to welcome everybody, including our remote users here. Good to see you all to this session. This is our next to last in-person session. And then the last one will be materials I send you for online viewing. Today we're going to have Lee Vukovich from Lister Hill Library, who's going to talk about effective literature searching. And I think the title is not exactly a misnomer, but I think that what Lee does is she will show you a lot of resources that you probably don't even know exist, and a lot of ways to use them effectively. So it's going to be you'll probably go over a little bit on Medline.
Oh, absolutely. That's actually, yeah, we do that in detail a little bit.
Regular Medline searching, Pubmed searching, but a lot of other things. So with that, I will let Lee take over.
Thank you. Yes, I'm currently the head of reference at Lister Hill Library, and my outreach responsibilities are to the research community pretty much at UAB. I work with the Ccts, and I work with a lot of the School of Medicine research communities on all kinds of things, whether it's searches or systematic reviews or writing your bio sketches or things like that. In preparing for this, wait a minute, I have to see how this works here. The slides aren't advancing. There we go. In preparing for this, I wasn't really sure what our group cohort would be, and you are very, have a wide range of interests. So I'm going to try to cover a little bit of everything, but I'm going to focus more on the things that are of universal interest than the things that are not. And this slide is up here just because if you find it a bit difficult to quickly get the information you need, you're in good company. There's just so much out there, and this is just looking at the journal literature. Over 26 million citations in PubMed. In journals, we have over 28,000 English peer-reviewed STEM journals, with 500 new ones being launched annually, and that doesn't even count the open access journals. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the presentation because we get so many questions about what does this mean? Is this open access journal of quality? Can I trust this article? And so we'll talk about that a little later. But as this simple slide just shows, from 2000 till now, PubMed articles have almost doubled. So searching efficiently and effectively to find out what you want is very important. Nobody has the time to just flounder when you're trying to get information. So what I'm going to focus on today is finding papers for clinical decisions, and then finding papers for research, grant proposals, and literature reviews, because those two processes are very different. A really important thing, I think, with the volume of increasing literature is to have some strategies in place to keep up with the literature. You don't need to read every new paper in your field, but if there's a practice-changing study or a whole new methodology or algorithm or something, I don't know what all you guys do over in the Informatics Institute, you need to at least be aware that it's there, so that you know to go and look for it when you start to do your research. So I will be getting to that in virtually everything I talk about today. How do you stay up? How can this make your work easier? And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time at the end with some of the issues that are important to academics, which is where you should publish and how to evaluate what you find online and what journals you should publish in. And so we'll talk about those in alternative metrics a little bit towards the end. And of course, we'll talk about how to find out who's citing your work and the important work in your fields. So basically, you probably all know this, I just run over it really quickly. To find information quickly and efficiently, you have to have a basic understanding of how information is organized, and we'll talk about that in the resources that we look at today. And then you have to know which resource is going to be good for the type of question you're asking. And once you've done that, you don't search the medical literature databases in the same way as you Google. You really do need to think clearly about what your key concepts are and the types of terminology that you need to use to have effective focused searches. And so a couple minutes brainstorming keywords and thinking about controlled vocabulary will really, really help you streamline your searches. And then you build your search statements carefully using and to narrow your searches, or for vocabularies to expand your searches, and in some cases, but rarely not. Once you've done that, if this is important, it's for a grant, it's for research, it's for a lit review for your upcoming paper, you want to refine that search while you're thinking about it, and then you want to save it so that you don't have to try to recreate it. And so each of the databases I'm showing you has that functionality. If we go through it quickly, the slides, which Dr. Berner will be sending to you, have links and screenshots of how to do that in every database. So you can always find the way to do that. And then we're going to also focus on the fact that most things offer you the ability to set up an automatic email alert for new results, and they have update services for clinical results that we'll take a look at. Okay. This is just a picture of our homepage, and on the UAB homepage we have search boxes for the major databases, and today I'm going to talk about Pubmed, Scopus, and Embase. Okay, one of the most common needs for information is evidence for clinical care. Because not too many of them, you that I know of, are healthcare providers, I'm going to do it kind of quickly. But I think it's important to share, if you're working in a clinical department even, that these databases are extremely useful for background information. And background information is information that's fairly stable and doesn't change over time too much, but you still want current information. So it's stuff like physiology, anatomy, the presentation of the disease, the typical course of treatment, and that's where it's important. You're not using an old textbook. If it's a cancer treatment, it might change monthly rather than yearly. And so these are really good places to find out that information in a really quick period of time. So for clinical questions, this is a model called the Haynes 6S model. And basically what it's saying is you want good synthesized information when you're working at the point of care that somebody else has evaluated for you. And that could be a meta-analysis or some of these other things I'll tell you about when we go down the pyramid. You want to be able to get it quickly and get your answers, and you don't have time to focus a long PubMed search when the patient's in the other room, or you've got 5 questions to answer before the end of the day. And it also has to be accurate if it's for clinical care. So the top system, if we had them and we don't yet, but hopefully you in the Informatics Institute are working on this, is getting in some actual robust decision support built into the medical record. Because if you could just click on a couple things in the medical record and get a decision tree, wouldn't that be awesome? Short of that, we use resources like evidence-based guidelines, Dynamed, and UpToDate. And for those of you that are at Tuskegee, I'm afraid you don't have those, but in your case you have some really great vet resources that do the same thing that I'm not talking about today. But I think Tulane has UpToDate and Dynamed, and most of the major state institutions will have one or the other. And then you go down and you go to systematic reviews in Cochrane Library and so forth. At the very bottom is where you will be starting if you're doing research, which is PubMed and clinical queries. So I'm not planning to open these, but they are linked here for those of you that are at UAB if you want to look at it. UpToDate is an extremely comprehensive and extremely expensive database that the Health Services Foundation purchases for UAB. It allows you to look up a disease, and this one shows you triple-negative breast cancer. And you can see how easily you can go to all sorts of information about that disease. And then on the right-hand side, if you scroll down, there's wonderful graphs and tables. It's a really quick way to get information for a morning report or for patient care. And it's probably our most popular clinical resource. If you are working off campus, and this is a question we are asked by everyone, hello children's.
Exactly.
Yes, okay, so the only way you can do it off campus is go into that databases page. I'm going to show you another screenshot and go to U for up to date, so that a little snippet of code called Easy Proxy is attached to the front, and you're asked to authenticate to show that UAB has paid for this for you. And that's kind of a pain in the neck. So hopefully it's the next slide. I totally recommend the up-to-date smartphone app. Anybody here? Come look at it at the end. It is awesome. What you have to do is follow the directions on this slide, being careful if you set it up off campus to go to the one that requires Easy Proxy. You make yourself a little password. You don't have to use 15 letters. You can make it whatever you want. And from then on, when you open your app, you will not have to authenticate. This is what the app looks like, and it's amazing. It has absolutely everything that's in up to date. What I really like is two of my favorite features for staying current are the what's new right here on the home page. That is by specialty. So you would look up neurology and they'll send you only the newest changes. So you can kind of scan that in 5 minutes and say, okay, that's what's going on. And then these practice changing updates are across all fields, and they're considered so urgent that everyone should know it because it's going to change the way you do patient care. So that's the smartphone app. Any questions about that for anyone? Okay, and I think at one of our partner institutions, unfortunately, I don't remember which one, you do not have up-to-date unless you're on campus. I think UAB pays hundreds of thousands of dollars for it to be available off campus. Yeah. You authenticate when you log in through the databases page. So if you're off campus, I recommend logging in once, downloading the phone app, following those directions, and setting up the phone app. At that point, you get to put your own username and password, and they don't ever ask you for it because they've already learned that you're off campus because you set it up that way. You don't even have to put in a username and password. You just open it up and use it. And you have to renew it every 90 days. So you just go in and click on it through UAB, and it's good for another 90 days. The next thing I'm going to show you is Dynamed, and I don't think I'm going to go into this either because there aren't too many of you here that use clinical medicine, but this is a really interesting resource. It doesn't have the depth or the number of specialties that UpToDate has, but it has a really easy format to use, and it's 100% evidence-based where consensus opinions are offered in UpToDate. So if you look up a topic like this, you can see clearly how easy it is to go directly to epidemiology, etiology, and that's probably the easiest place to get incidence and prevalence. Those are so hard to find, and for everything in here, you just go there in 2 seconds and you can throw it into your summary for whatever you're doing. The other thing that I think is, these are all pretty standard for anybody in clinical care, but the guidelines and resources, if you click on that link, they've gone through the pertinent guidelines and they've pulled out only the ones that are evidence-based. If you've ever used National Guidelines Clearinghouse, that is really a tough one to search. This pulls out on your topic the most important evidence-based ones, and you can get to them in one click. It also pulls out the most important, in their opinion, narrative review articles, which are those wonderful articles, it's hard to find in Pubmed, that just says this treatment for this disease, and you can read it quickly. So I find that to be those are my two favorite things about Dynamed. And Dynamed is about 1/15 the cost of UpToDate, so lots of institutions have it. I don't know what that was. Okay, to find all of our clinical tools, you can go to the LHL databases page here, And in this Access Information column, if you click on Mobile for any database, it'll tell you exactly how to get it and set it up. Because Dynamed has a very nice app as well. If you're a Dynamed user, I recommend. It's just so much easier on your phone not to have to put in Blazer ID and 15-letter password. So I recommend that for anything that you use that you can get on your phone. And I do see we have quite a few new people added to our online attendees. I have muted you all so we don't get feedback, but if you have a question, please unmute yourself and just ask. So before I go on, would you please just let me know if you have any questions about these clinical resources and what we've talked about so far. Hello? I'm not seeing that. Let me see if anybody chatted in. How much of this data is pertinent to pediatrics? A lot of it. In UpToDate, you can sort by pediatrics. In Dynamed, typically you look at the disease, appendicitis, and you'll have a choice of appendicitis in children and appendicitis in adults, and then you'll just click on the children one. Again, it's a tool more of more basic things. So a lot of the diseases you see in children routinely and in the ER, like asthma, appendicitis, things like that, will be in Dynamed. Okay, let me put this back down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sometimes, there we go. Okay, another place that you can find everything that I'm talking about today is this CCTS guide, and there's a lot more in here than what I have time to look at, and it's located here. And again, for those of you who came in just a couple minutes ago, Dr. Berner is sending the slides out to you all, and all of the links are live on the slides. You can also contact me directly if you have a question, and my email address is on the first slide. Right, and all of you that are looking remotely, you need to send the email address where you'd like to receive the materials, and you can send it either to Dr. Berner or to me, and I'll forward them to her. Let's see, how would they get my email, though? My email is V as in Victor, UCOVI @uab.edu. Okay, keeping up with the literature in the clinical field, a couple things I recommend. I just showed you the UpToDate app, what's new. And the other thing that I think is the greatest is evidence updates. Does anybody use that? Okay, that's from McMaster University. And they are the ones that do the bulk, they do almost all this type of work that is purchased by things like Medscape. So you may have seen these before. You just go to Google Evidence Updates, create an account, and choose what you'd like to see. And in your email, you'll get something that looks like this on your topic. And then this is what you get when you look at it up close. It tells you what it is. It tells you the abstract and relevance to practice in various fields that you're in, and whether or not it's news. When you set it up, you can say, I only want to see things on 5 stars or 6 stars so you don't get inundated. And then the other really useful thing is they do include reviewers' comments, and unlike many of the blogs when people get snarky and say stupid things, everyone I've looked at are people that are practicing, that have read the article carefully, and they either point out something that maybe they're a little concerned with the methodology, or something in their practice that's different, or it confirms their own research. So it's very, very, very useful. And so I just like to point that out to you. It is totally free. Okay, we're going to shift base now and talk about finding papers for research, grant proposals, and literature reviews. And so for these types of papers, you're looking in a different way. You're going to start looking at databases, and then you're going to filter to, if you want something like systematic reviews, you're going to look at the entire body of literature and then pick out things like that that you want. But you're not going to start at the top and have somebody else select for you. Particularly as you get into narrow areas, you're going to want to see everything that's reputable if you're writing a grant proposal. You certainly don't want to be surprised by a review or having written a key article and you didn't see it, for example. So let's see. The first thing I'm going to do, though, before we actually go into databases, is talk about how you get to the full text. And for those of you who are off-site from UAB, your libraries work exactly like this. And so you'll just use the same procedure, but your links will look a little different. I've looked up each of yours, and you all are using the same procedure. So typically you may be told by your mentor or a friend, hey, there's a great article in Cell this week on this, so you decide to read it. What do? Half of you will go to Pubmed and look for Cell in this, and the other half will go to Google and look for Cell in this. And you'll come up with one of two screens. The Pubmed screen, you'll come up and you'll click on the publisher's link. And if you go directly through Google, you'll either get that one or get this nice publisher's link. And this is where we get into trouble. When you click on PDF, this one costs $59. Now at UAB, you never have to pay for anything. Neither should you at any of our partner institutions. So the simplest way to get to the screen that'll let you request the article or get the article for free is to simply go down here and copy the article title. Then go to your library homepage. At UAB, I recommend you put it in your browser tabs or on your desktop so it's just a click. And at UAB, we have the Pubmed box front and center. Some schools do, some schools don't. And that's the one that allows you to go through our easy proxy. So you just paste it in there. And now your Pubmed link has another little link next to it. Ours says UAB. Partners will say something else. And when you click on that one, you get a box that looks like this. And partner institutions, your box will look different, but it'll do the same thing. And you just click on the article. Now you authenticate with your favorite Blazor ID and password. And you go through the publisher page and click on PDF, and here it is. I would say it takes less than 20 seconds. And that's how you do it. Does anybody have questions on that? And this works from every database. Okay.
From everywhere.
From everywhere.
At all times.
At all times of the day and night.
It is beautiful. I am in the library every single day. You can never see me.
Good, yes.
I'm there in spirit.
Good, yay. And we're trying to make it easier for you to be there in spirit, I'll tell you. But it's really important because often I didn't go through our chat, but we have a chat service and we do email that we check at night and first thing in the morning. Frequently we will have, I can't get this full text. And that came in at 2 in the morning. Unfortunately, you all work at 2 or 5 or unusual times. If you know how to do this, you won't have to wait for us. We tell you how to do it and get you your article a little bit later in the day. And we have at least 2 or 3 times a year somebody at a conference who says, help, I'm making a presentation and somebody told me about this article, I need it now. And yeah, we can get it now if we have it, but if they knew themselves, then they'd be able to have done it the night before and prepared. So this is important, and at every institution it's the same process. Here at UAB, what happens if we don't have the article? You're going to get this thing. So what you do at UAB as you scroll down to the first request and click on it. At other institutions, your linkers might say some jargon like ILL or document delivery. Same thing, just go there and ask for it. Now there are other routes to full text I like to mention because they're important and you have to set them up. How many use Google Scholar? I'm sure quite a few of you do. In Google Scholar, this link will tell you exactly how to set up your library links and your preferences. And I'm going to show you a couple of slides in a minute on what that means. Do we have EndNote users? Pretty confident we have some. You need to set your preferences it under Preferences and EndNote to a proxy string. And that's all in this link. And when you do that and you use Find Full Text, it gets about 80 to 90% of the full text we buy. And so it's one click to full text through EndNote if you've got some citations in. So it's really important to do that. Here at UAB, we also have a product called Browsine. I'm going to take a couple seconds to talk about it. And Browsine is an iPhone app. There is web accessibility, but doesn't work very well, that you put on your iPhone, your iPad, or your Android. I'm not sure if they support other platforms. And it allows you, this instructions are on the left. The app is free. We pay for content. And it allows you to set up a little library of the journals that you read most often, or to look up a specific journal. And so you can be, maybe you're standing outside someplace trying to kill 10 minutes. You can pull up PLOS ONE if that's your journal and just kind of look at the TOCs for that. Once you get to the TOC, you simply click on the article and it opens. No article linker, nothing. Directly to the PDF, no publisher page. And that's real, and it's really fast. So it's awesome. And so once you've seen that article, it has multiple ways to export it, directly to EndNote if you use EndNote, to one of your PDF readers on your phone, via email to yourself. So you don't have to take phone memory up. You can just send it and that PDF will be sent to you any way that you want to do it. And that's called Browsine. If anybody wants to see it, I do have it set up on my cell phone. I love it. I use that a lot off campus as well. Okay, this is a Google Scholar screen. Most of you know that use Google Scholar that if the article is available for free, you're going to have a link over here, and if not, it's going to be white. And in this case, for this search, there were quite a few articles. You would not see anything if you hadn't set your preferences. Once you've set them, you're going to see Find It at UAB, and in all of the partner institutions, they often have some other terminology like at your library, but your library name will be in there. And when you click on it, you're going to get your article linker page, whichever one you have at your institution or ours. So at that point, you can just grab the article and read it rather than having to go back and look it up in PubMed and everything. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Advantages of Google versus using PubMed. I mean, sometimes, I hate to admit it, but Google finds things better, or it's different.
Yes.
But it's a different flavor. I mean, do you have recommendations for when you, I'm a PubMed fan, but there are just times like images for MRIs.
Yep. I will tell you, okay, I will tell you what I believe. I think it's really important to understand PubMed and use it if you need a comprehensive review of the literature, because Google is going to have it all there, but unless you are really, really, really specific, you may not find what you want as easily. But that being said, both Google and Google Scholar, and their algorithms are different, so they work differently, allow you to be comfortable when you're starting sort of, I call it a scoping search. You're not sure exactly what the terms are you need, but you know what you want. If you can find 2 or 3 articles there, you can then look those up in PubMed and use some of the tools I'm going to show you to write a PubMed search. And if you just need one article, typically I just start in, sometimes I start in PubMed, or I'll start in Google and do the cut and paste. For Google Scholar, I recommend it being better than PubMed for a couple of things. I'm going to talk about how PubMed works in a minute, but Google Scholar is actually a full-text database of every single thing that's in their entire index. So, for example, there may be something in a methodology section that you need, but it's not important enough to be in that tiny summary in an abstract. The fastest way is Google Scholar because it reads the whole article. PubMed Central is doing that, but it has to have been indexed in PubMed Central. They just added that. Other things, test instruments, and some really new stuff that may have several different names yet. Substance names may not yet be indexed, yet the author of the article might have put note here, also known as. You can pull those up. I would start in Google Scholar for those. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for asking. I think it's an important question when you're choosing the right resource. Okay, so typically people start with Pubmed for biomedical information, and the way that Pubmed is organized is using controlled vocabulary. And so you all know what Pubmed is, but I'm just going to remind you, it only includes 5,600 journals. Remember that first slide when we were talking about something like 40,000 journals? So they are probably the most important English-speaking journals. They are focused mostly on the U.S. and Western Europe, which can be a problem sometimes. It also includes some additional things like work funded by NIH-funded researchers that are not available in Pubmed, which is very useful. It's funded by the government, so it's free for everybody, used worldwide, and that's why you can find those results in virtually any database you want. And all the full text is served on an external server, and it's important to remember that because you will never search the full text of the entire article in Pubmed, hence the reason why Google Scholar is helpful. So this is what a record looks like in Pubmed, and if you were just to do a search of this record, which is all you're searching, you can see it would be very difficult to search Pubmed, right? You'd have to be so focused on the right vocabulary to hit that title and abstract. So because of that, when an article is put in Pubmed, a human being actually at the Library of Medicine reads every single article. And that person says this article is about heart attack, and this article is about myocardial infarction. But those are the same concepts, so I'm going to tag it. I'm going to call it myocardial infarction, and I'll tag them all. So from now on, if you look up either one, you're going to get the article, right? And so they call those tags medical subject headings, and it's at the bottom of, whoops, I didn't want to do that. It's at the bottom of every record under mesh term once the person has read it and it's been indexed. So now, anytime you get any one of these terms correctly, you will bring up the article, and obviously if you get 2 or 3 of them, you'll get articles closer to your search terms. So that's why it goes really well if you know your topic. The other thing that Pubmed does, and a lot of other databases do not, is called automatic term mapping. So if I type in a word like breast cancer, and Pubmed looks at that, it will map it to the mesh term, which is breast neoplasms, and it will search both as keywords. So suddenly, if you are even close to the topic you know, and the more you know your topic, the better your searches will be, you really don't even need to know how to use Pubmed, because Pubmed does all the work for you. And so now I'll get breast cancer, breast neoplasms, breast tumors spelled with an OU, breast tumors spelled with an OR, and all of that brought in because of that mapping process. So I'm going to do a quick search and show you what I think are some of the key features that will help you in making your Pubmed searches better. So I'm going to start in the native database so it looks more familiar, and I'm going to do pharmacogenomics, heart disease, and treatment. Let's see. There we go. Oops. Get back up here. Sorry. Now you'll notice that I did not combine my terms. It's a default and like Google. If you were concerned though about a phrase, you can add a capital A-N-G in order to make it see it as a phrase, and you never use quotes in Pubmed because it turns off automatic mapping. So if you get to a point that you need quotes, contact us as a librarian and we'll give you some alternative strategies, or look at our guide, which is on the bottom of every of the search box pages on the, as you go in, and I'll show you that later. So when you do that and you search, we come up with about 700 articles. That's not horrible, but you certainly don't have time to read 700 articles. So I'm going to show you some of the things you can do. The first thing that you can do, they're normally sorted by date rank, but people really like a relevance sort. What you don't want to do is miss a key new article that's not yet indexed because the guy hasn't gotten to it to read it. And so in order to avoid that, you can go over here on our website and look at Pubmed without mesh. And there's 31 articles there and sorted by relevance. Maybe you just want to pick the ones that you want to see. What I typically do at that point is send them to my clipboard. How many of you use a clipboard? Okay, yeah, it's useful if you're going to be doing a bunch of scoping searches to see what's what and you don't want to lose the article, the 1 out of 3 that's good. This will stay online for approximately 8 hours if you don't close your browser. So they're over there waiting for you. Then you can come back to all your articles. And at this point, you can start applying limits. Limits are generally mesh terms. And so once you start applying them, you won't see those newer articles. For something like this, you might want to come over here and say, well, I really would like to see systematic reviews. So you can go down here and just make it display. And choose it. And now you're down to only 35 articles. Similarly, clinical trials are often useful. Let me get this one off. Because they include randomized controlled trials and some other things. So already you've taken that 712 down. Other useful filters over here include species, language, and age. And to get age, you have to click here, and in medicine, a lot of times you're looking at geriatric or pediatric stuff, and you just get those there. The last thing I want to show you is subjects, because this too can be useful sometimes. So we have the AIDS and the cancer subsets. If you're looking for breast cancer, you don't have to do the cancer subset. But if you were looking like chronic pain treatment, the subset of that search that would be in the AIDS would be very different from what you'd see in cancer. So sometimes this can come in handy, and I just like you to see it. I think it's helpful in outcomes research sometimes because you may have a really good string on the outcome, but if you are looking in cancer or AIDS, it is useful. Okay, when I first do my search, the first thing I do after seeing those other things is look to see if my article's mapped correctly, my search mapped correctly. So I went on the right-hand side to search details and opened it up. And if you can see that, you'll see that for heart disease, it searched the mesh term and then all the different keywords surrounding it. For pharmacogenomics, it searched the mesh term of pharmacogenetics. And then it searched both pharmacogenetics and pharmacogenomics as keywords. And the same thing with treatment, it searched therapy as a subheading, and then also in all fields. And then it also said, well, I'll do therapeutics as well, which is kind of interesting. I probably wouldn't have put that in. So it's really broadened my search. If it has done something that you don't want it to do, you can go up here. You have to be careful about the parentheses and take out, like if you didn't want therapeutics, you could just delete it out and rerun it. Any questions about that? If you do that every time you start a new search and you see that something hasn't mapped, you should go look for it, what it should map to, and your results will improve dramatically in very little time. Okay, what else do I need to show you? Yes, two more important things. Create alert. This is where you save search. Don't know why it doesn't say save search. But in order to create an alert, you will be asked to create a MyNCBI account. I'm not going to show you. You can all do that on your own. But at that point, it will open an alert form that says, do you want alerts weekly, monthly, or none at all? And it'll give you an opportunity to save your search. You can go back to MyNCBI, open it up, and run for new results only, or you can have them sent in weekly or monthly if this is for a project or a grant. The other thing that's very helpful is once you have a list of search results, and I'll just go back, I don't have a clipboard set on this, so I'll just set a couple things here. You can go up here to send to, and this is where you send them to EndNote if you didn't know that, and you can choose collections. And this is another thing that will go to my NCBI, and you can just very quickly send those over there as a group of citations to come back and review. I recommend making an account and working at it all the time, because if you're called away, you can just pull your clipboard off and send it off, and you haven't lost your work, and you can save your search. So that's very useful. Another useful feature in my NCBI is you have the option to have it save your most recent history. So if you accidentally close your browser, you can always go back and grab what you were doing. Okay, are there any questions about that? The last thing I want to show you on Pubmed is back on the Pubmed homepage, and this is clinical queries for clinicians, which allows you to do some really quick searches. I'm just going to put in something really quick just to show you what your choices are. And once you've got that in there, you can you're given the opportunity to choose clinical categories like diagnosis or therapy and narrow or broad searches, and it just runs a real quick search for you. It also shows you all the systematic reviews on the topic, and if there's various genetics involved with it, they're all over here. So it's a very, very quick, handy tool. And for those of you involved in other types of things like outcomes research, similarly, you have a tool here. Let me go back. Will let me. Called topic-specific queries, and you can go right here, and there are some ways to narrow to outcomes research that you choose. You put your thing in and narrow. So I'd like to let everybody know those tools are there. If you play around with them and don't understand them, you can contact us. But they're pretty straightforward if you even know they're there. Okay, does anybody have any questions on Pubmed? Okay, these are just slides to remind you of what we looked about. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is Embase, and I'm going to do it really quickly because we're running low on time, and I do want to show you Scopus. Embase is only available at UAB, and it is an expensive tool from Elsevier. The nice thing about it is that it has 3,000 journals not in PubMed, and we have a lot of people that are doing extensive lit reviews. So I'm just going to show you how to find the unique articles. So if I were going to do a search for gene therapy, and I was going to do retinal degeneration, in Embase, you put quotes around phrases, and it automatically maps anyway. And you can do a quick search. I am in this quick search field. What did I do? Oh, it's really picky about syntax, and I think I forgot to space. There we go. Let's try that again.
So every phrase has got to be
separated
out with quotes. Okay.
Right, you get way too much scatter. Up here, you have some boxes if you're looking for drugs or diseases that make it easier to find them. Embase is the best database for drugs if you're doing drug development, the best database for medical devices, and so you would use those forms. Across the top of the page are some really quick limits that a lot of people use, so this is where you might want to do only in English and humans, and it is for the entire search. On the left-hand side of the page, these are filters that change with every result set. And so what's really kind of cool is you could open up the drugs, for example, and see all the names of the various drugs, the gene therapy drugs that are being used, and pull out only the articles on them. The other thing that's nice here, and you can do the same thing in Scopus, is if you go down to the journal titles, it lists in decreasing order where articles on this topic are published. It's a good way to figure out where to publish if you're doing research in this area, or if maybe you publish in molecular therapy kind of journals all the time, but you want to hit the vision researchers, you could pick a journal that might be likely to take your article. And the last thing is, how do you get those unique citations? I need to get up to the top of my page here. You click on sources, and you have a phony Venn diagram, and it's phony because there's only 321 here and there's 679 in there. But these are the Embase only, and so I can apply that. Now, Embase has lots of content that comes from conference materials, and sometimes you don't want that, and sometimes you do. But if you do not want that, you just go down here and choose what you do want to see. So you might want reviews, articles, and if there are any articles in press. And this is all on the Embase guide that we make available. Let me see if I can just get this to go up here. I will apply. And now you'll see that I have 162 unique articles. So that was really quick, but it's something I think everyone should know about. Our partner institutions can't get into it offline, but you certainly can come to campus at any time if you wanted to and needed Embase results. Or sometimes maybe somebody here could do that for you. It just kind of depends on if you're in a research group with somebody here.
And you can access this offline via the Mr. Hill.
Right, it's actually, yeah, yes, you just go to our homepage and it's one of the little boxes. The search box is there and the guide is there. So it's very useful if you're doing a systematic review. And then this is how you do all the other things in there. Okay, the last thing that I want to cover, and we don't have lots of time, is Scopus. Scopus is the same as Web of Science. Different providers, they do the same thing, and some of our partner institutions have that. But what they are is large interdisciplinary databases, so almost 22,000 journals in Scopus. And you use it because it has more international literature, it's interdisciplinary. But more importantly, it includes the reference list of every article and the forward citations to an article. So if this is your paper or the paper on which you're basing your research or your grant, you can look at those forward citations. You can see possible collaborators and possible competitors. You can also see if anybody has enhanced your work or criticized your work. So it's very important. And when you search by topic, you can rank result sets by relevance or time cited. This means that you can find the papers that gather the most attention, usually the earlier papers in your field. So even if you haven't used it, you probably want to know the most highly cited paper. If you're presenting a poster, say the author came up to you and said, "You're familiar with such and such." Well, yeah, you'd want to be at least familiar with such and such. Well, this is what a Scopus record looks like. You search Scopus by keywords. However, it doesn't have controlled vocabulary. It does correct for plurals and spelling variations like British and English. So you always want to try to brainstorm some search terms, vocabularies for your word. One thing that does help is they put in the key M-tree terms from Embase and mesh terms. So if you knew decision-making was the focus of your article, you could put that in as one of your search terms. And over here, you can see that this article, this is Dr. Berner's article, I think 2008, has been cited 250 times. That is a lot in this area of science. And so you can go right here and see all of them, and you can look at all the bibliographies for them by clicking here or scrolling down. Now, they've added something here called Altmetrics, and so what this does, and so you can do this for your own articles as well, is it shows you how many citations they were and that it's the 99th percentile for this type of article. And it also shows you, I'm going to go down here and pull it up, all sorts of other things, like How many people put it to a Mendeley library? How many blogs talked about it? How many people tweeted it? And you can go in and you can see it was mentioned in additional sources, site you like, and you can get a total explanation of what kind of mentions they were. So you can find it was in the blog Decisions, and it was in Wikipedia. So somebody put it in a Wikipedia article. If this is your article and you're trying to prove your worth, it can be very helpful. It's also available in faculty profiles. I don't think I have time to go in and show you a search. It's pretty straightforward because I'd like to just show you a couple of other things. I think most of you have used this type of database before. So I'm going to go forward with this. And if you want to look up your own work to see what kind of metrics are for you, you use the author search as shown on this slide. And you choose yourself, and you'll be taken to an author page that will give metrics like the H index that are being used for when people are being hired or promoted. So you want to take the time to look yourself up. You want to make sure the information is accurate. If it's not, you can go up to the right-hand side of the page and say, fix it, and Scopus will make you look right because you want to present yourself online as best you can. Yes, if you're in faculty profiles, they include that information. Yes, you can if when your articles are in there. Okay, so this is a new area of science, so I put a slide here to tell you what it is. It's typically considered complementary. Some people don't quite trust it yet, but NISO is writing standards. They're almost ready to come out for it. It's getting a lot of attention, and I think you'll see more and more attention to it, especially in the clinical area. I mean, if you're cited and up to date, you may not write very often, but it is going to affect the practice of many, many people, and that's an example of why people are looking at it. How do you find it? Well, this article from the West Lab here at UAB just came out in June. It's not even in Scopus. Nobody's had time to write an article and cite it, but this is what's been going on online with it. 127 people, that's their number index, 14 news outlets, bloggers, tweeters, and when you open it up, you can look at the summary. In this case, I opened it up to the blog page, and you can see they all got the main point, and they're really cool blogs having to do with neurology and things like that. One of them is neurology, and one of them is I forget, something else. You can look at it on there. So this is very useful to you if it's your article. And how do you find it? There are several ways. You can, if you're in faculty profiles or Scopus, you can get it. You can look up the journal webpage, and a growing number of journals actually include that information by the article for all to see, but a lot don't. So you can go to altmetrics.com and download this little bookmarklet. It's free. That'll let you look up any article that you want to on the publisher page, Google it to get to it, and you can then get the same kind of information. Anybody have questions? You think it's cool or waste of time?
Yeah, that's what our parents, that's.
Yeah. So anyway, this.
That's the future.
Yes, I think it is. The last thing I was going to mention, we'll do this really quickly, is predatory, and they're sometimes called deceptive or hijacked publishers. And this is an example I'm sure most of you have gotten already in your careers, the new career people, these interesting things begging you to submit an article. And this is a particularly bad one because it didn't even call me by name. Often our faculty get them and they are like, call them by name and say, will you please read, I love this article of yours, please update it and I want to publish it. They invite you to publish. You've never heard of them. We get calls about this a fair amount of time. And so this is one, and you can see it's bad if you know what you're looking at. This is not an impact factor. It doesn't have one. It's a lying impact factor. This is not a real organization that does journal rankings. The language looks like it was put through a poor translator, and that's what these look like. So this slide will tell you if you're trying to evaluate the quality of an article, and this is what happens when you search Google or Google Scholar, Google Scholar's better. Google doesn't discriminate in their algorithm. And you get something suspicious, this is what you do. And a lot of it makes sense. You look in the main databases to see if it's there. I'll show you slides on these two things, and if anybody has to go, you can come back and look at the slides. There is a directory of open access journals. The link is here, and it has been cleaning up its directory. If you look up your journal and it has a green check mark, that means it's a reputable journal. There's also a controversial list of predatory publishers. Primarily controversial because some publishers don't like being on it, and so they raise a big stink. But it's another good place to start, and it has predatory journals that are not published as part of a publishing packet. And so this, I put a link in here for those of you who like to self-evaluate. That tells you how to identify and evaluate open access journals. So the last couple slides are simply the ways you find important information about journals. One is the impact factor. Most of you have heard about it. When you go up for promotion, often when you're hired, somebody looks at your articles to see the impact factor of the journal. And so you can get it from JCR Web. And these slides just show the kind of information you can get from them. That is on our databases page, and almost all major universities do have that resource. And the last is to use Scopus Analytics. And what you do is you look up a search, for example, in Scopus, and go to the Analytics button, and it will show you the opportunity to click by source. Then it ranks all those journals like Embase did, but it also will take up to 10 in this graph to show you how many articles it publishes on your topic. And if you go up here to compare journals, it uses a metric called SJR that's very similar to impact factor, but it covers far more journals and it ranks them. So you can see if you chose that little gold one, that one probably has the highest impact, and maybe this little green one down here has the lowest. So it's a way to sort of evaluate journals that you don't know well. And that's for the reading. So I'm sorry we kind of had to rush through things. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions on what those metrics mean and what you might want to do to make sure yours are accurate, or how you use any of the journal information on the journal ranking pages, or anything about using Scopus. Please just get in touch, and thank you for your attention. So again, I have my email address down here, and all of you who are online, be sure that you make sure that we do have your email so that you can be sent the information.